Well, hey friends, welcome back. This is day 20 of our 25-day Christmas Advent watercolor paint along. Today we're going to be painting a beautiful fireplace covered in some greenery and some lovely shiny bells. And today we are 80% of the way through this series. I can't believe it's come this far already. But before we jump in, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the rest of the series, and go ahead and tap the like button if you're painting along with me today. It really helps this video reach more people. So grab your supplies, get your paper ready, and let's start with a simple sketch. So I'm going to start with a mantle along the top. If you prefer using a ruler for this type of sketch, that's fine. It doesn't hurt to use a ruler at all. And if you prefer tracing a template to freehanding, I have the templates available on my website for all of the videos in this series. You are more than welcome to use those if you prefer tracing to freehanding. So let's get down a nice little hearth here. And let's get down the opening for our fireplace. You could do an arched one if you would like to. I'm going to do a little bit more of a classic modern look and have a square opening. And I'm going to add a garland here. We'll have this swooping down over the edge of our fireplace shortly. So I'm not going to paint that part in. I am going to add over here, I'm going to add a little string with some of those cute little brass bells. We're just going to keep the shape really simple. We're going to add a little set of 3. We want to keep it nice and varied. We'll do like a small, medium, and large shapes here. And then I'm going to add a little group with 2 stockings. One kind of tucked behind the other one. And then I am going to add, just to create a nice little height here, I'm going to add a little candlestick trio. And that will be it. Now I notice my fireplace is not exactly symmetrical, so I'm going to go back in and fix that really quickly. All right, and let's get the logs in our fire really quickly. So I'm just going to add a quick little rack for the log to be sitting in. I'll add a nice little log there. We'll add a couple smaller logs on top. And there we go. So that's it. And let's start with activating our watercolors here. I'm going to start with adding just a little bit of trim work to my fireplace. I'm going to use my Payne's Gray and give it a quick little outside edge here. And, you know, we're also going to I'm going to make this surround a white color. We're also going to have some shadows here dropping from the stockings, from the, I don't know all of my fireplace part terms, so is this the lintel? I'm not sure. I know maybe it's the mantle. Soften that up just a wee bit. The damp, clean brush. And let's add a little bit of shadow there behind the bells and the greenery that's over there. All right, now the inside of our fireplace, we're gonna make a nice kind of traditional brick look. So I'm gonna mix some of my crimson red with some Van Dyke brown. And before I put too much color in here, you wanna remember we're gonna have a little bit of fire on here. So if you want to sketch that out, you most certainly can. You're gonna have some coals down here. You're gonna have some little tongues of fire coming up there, and then around that area is gonna be kind of glowy. So we're gonna keep the areas away from the darkest. And then we'll add some nice little glow as we get our colors in. Now, the closer you get, the more watered down you're gonna want your paint to be. See, down here I might have more of a reddish, orangish glow. All right, we're gonna go in with some burnt orange there as our next. Think of it as almost like kind of a rainbow type of effect. To get that nice little glowy look. A ring of that burnt orange. And then just use your damp brush to agitate that red brick and that orange together. And then I'm going to go in the yellow ochre around that. And then my warm yellow next at the most inner parts. And just take your damp, clean brush and work those edges of those colors together. And let's get the reddish glow of the coals in the bottom real quick. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to use my Scarlet red first. I'm not going to fill in all the space. I'm going to leave some of that a little more open. And I'm going to get my kind of light orange and dab that light orange in the rest of the empty spaces that I left. You're going to get that nice glowy look. And then again at the edges where that scarlet meets the darker color, just work those together. All right, I'm gonna get the mantle next, and we're gonna use some medium brown. And when you get your stockings, just go around those. You can use a warm brown in here too, or that coffee brown, that chocolate brown. Vary up your colors a little bit to get a little bit more of a natural wood grain look. And on the very underneath side, and right here where the stockings are going to cast a little bit of shadow, I'm going to use a little bit of Van Dyke brown. Get a little bit of shadow from the strings, and we're definitely going to have some shadow. I'm going to make this a little more jagged and kind of spotty. And that's going to be from the shadow from the greenery. Next, I'm going to add just the fireplace insert. I'm going to use just some black for that. You want to use your fine brush and your most steady hand. Just a thin line around the edge of the firebox area. All right, I'm just going to add the little claws for my wood racks there. And should probably also add just a wee bit of a brick hearth here. So I'm using some of my deep red with just a touch of black. All right, let's add a little bit of character. Let's get this fireplace all dressed up. I'm going to start with the bells here. I'm going to use my lemon yellow and add a little stripe to my bells. On the outside of these, I'm going to use the warm yellow. Then I'm going to use the yellow ochre outside of those. A little bit of burnt orange on the very edges. Can add a little bit around the top. And then I'm going to use that kind of coffee brown here to add just a few tiny little stripes. Yes, I'm going into the yellow spots that I've already gone. It's going to give it kind of that shiny metallic look. All right, these need some ribbons to hang on. I'm going to give them some little red ribbons, just because I want to have something that's going to stand out from the green that we're going to add in just a moment. You can always add something else if you prefer. And I'm going to start with my stockings next. I'm just going to make them very simple, solid toned stockings. I'm going to get the front one first, and we'll add the second one after this one has had a little bit of time to dry. And you can always take a little bit more concentrated color. Put along one edge. All right, I'm gonna go in with the black and add my candlesticks. I'm gonna keep a little teeny highlight, like they're just the tiniest bit shiny. These are really simple candlesticks. And to give them just that little bit of a candle, I'm gonna have some really diluted Payne's Gray mixed with just a little teeny bit of Van Dyke Brown. And I'm gonna make these some tall taper candles. I'm not gonna have them lit. I'm just really doing one side of them so they have a little shadow. And next, let's add the logs here. Now I'm going to make these just a few different colors so they all kind of stand out from each other. Now remember, you've got that little bit of a glow from the fire. So I'm going to add a little yellow ochre right around the flame area, where that flame would be, kind of casting a glow on that part of the log. And I'm going to do each log in just a little bit different tone of gray. You can go in with a little bit of a kind of drier brush and kind of scratch this in. I'm kind of going sideways with my brush to kind of give it a little more texture here. All right, let's get that last log back there. Lay down the main log color and then come back in with that yellow ochre for the glowy look around that fire. All right, with that fire, I am going to add just the littlest, a littlest bit of lemon yellow to kind of the outline of it. We want to leave the centers fairly white. So that fire is, pretty hot and bright. So we're gonna just outline with that yellow. All right, we have one stocking left. I'm gonna use my deep red for this one. I want it to be just a skosh different color from the other one so they stand out from each other. Just that little bit. Add just the littlest bit of a drop shadow there from that stacking in front. I just used a little teeny bit of Van Dyke brown. Soften that up. Now let's add the final touch, which is just really going to make this piece come alive. I'm going to use my deep green or hooker's green. And we're going to start with some long, gentle brush strokes here. We want it to go over that mantle just a bit. Now I'm going to lay a base of this deep green or hooker's green in first, and then I'm going to come back with my olive green to add some dimension and kind of shadowing here. I'll just be careful when you get over here to your bells. All right, now I'm going to go into my olive green and just add in here and there kind of the same amount of thickness as with the deep green. Some nice little variations here. All right, and there is our fun little Christmas fireplace. It is day 20 of our Advent watercolor paint along series. I just wanted to share a short verse with you really quickly. It comes from the book of John, chapter 1, verse 5, and it says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." I'm just so thankful for Jesus being the light of the world that came to us, and we celebrate that at Christmas time. And this fireplace just reminds me of the light that came to the world. So if you enjoyed painting this little fireplace with me today, I'd love for you to leave a comment below and tell me how it went. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can join me for the rest of the Advent series. And if you're looking for templates, private classes, or live painting sessions, you can find all of that information on my website. And I will see you tomorrow for day 21.